I'm just singing on the record. Yeah, this is what I sound like on the song. And then you got the other people that are like, whoa! Like,
Yeah.
it's like a big difference, man.
It
Like
is a
people don't.
huge difference, man.
Like,
It's totally different. Like they evoke different feelings whenever your singing is more subdued and quiet and almost like sultry sometimes versus like you're like singing your absolute heart out. You're pouring your emotions and your soul into the song. It's just you feel that when they do it. It's just I don't know how else to
exactly.
put it, man. But
That's it.
that's all it is.
This man said, you go get this song. You go get these vocals.
It's the best way I know how to put it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Welcome to After Listen, the music discovery and discussion podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Brandon Lee.
And I'm Terry Yo.
And for today's topic, we're taking a little journey into the sensual land of R&B music, baby.
Oh, yeah. So, here on After Listen, we love music and we love talking about it. But before we get into it, we always have our... let's rewind that back. Here on After Listen, we love everything about music and we love talking about it, but we do have some obligatory disclaimers. First things first, we respect everybody's opinion, regardless of how wrong or terrible it may be. Number two, we're just talking about the music. If an artist gets canceled before, after, or during a discussion, that doesn't mean we're advocating for whatever they did or did not do, or whatever they got canceled for. We strictly talk about the music. Number three, for this episode, this is just an overview of the genre, so sorry if you gloss over, some pivotal R&B artists or songs. There is no way in hell that we can cover 70-something years of R&B music in an hour podcast. Nope. I can't do it. I won't do it. It can't be done. And also, if number four, for the record, we're going to spend a lot of time talking about 90s and 2000s R&B music because that's the golden era of contemporary R&B music. Changed my mind. Ain't gonna happen.
I mean, I don't know if it's specifically labeled as that, like in the larger community, but we're definitely staking our claim that that's the case today, I think.
Absolutely. That's the era we're going to spend a lot of time in. But we're going to talk about, 70s all the way through the 2020s.
Yep. So, and lastly, of course, you can always check the show notes for song links and ways to support the different artists featured in today's episode. And let's get into the show.
Absolutely. Let's get into it. So, right out the gate, my question to you, Brandon, what is R&B music? Or how would you define it?
So, this was the question that was like playing through my head, like kept asking myself over and over again whenever I was first listening to the playlists, like what exactly is R&B music? Because like I had this kind of nebulous idea of like, oh, that's the sexy, horny music that's kind of the cousin to hip hop, right? That was like the deepest I'd probably thought about it before. Mm-hmm. But through listening to all these songs you compiled for me for this episode, and thinking about, again, that question, it was something I was asking myself repeatedly throughout this experience. The definition I kind of landed on is first of all, R&B is it's a broad genre, right? Like it's hard to put it in like a specific box. First of all, let me just get that out of the way. So I'm going to attempt to kind of do that, but just know it doesn't really neatly fit in any one box. But the way I look at R&B is it's kind of, especially 100%, it's like most modern day current form. It's really a bridge, right, between pop music, hip hop music, and blues, which kind of took me a while to like really pick up on the blues influence. I'll talk about like what song specifically kind of like made that light bulb moment go off for me a little bit later on. But so yeah, that's kind of what I've landed on. Of course, some things that are more specific to it is you got to have someone who can sing. It's very vocal, like not just talking to a rhythm like hip hop or something like it's people. You got to be singing, belting some notes to be a good
Absolutely.
R&B song.
Yep. That's kind of a requirement, a prerequisite. You got to be
Yeah,
able to hold a note
yeah.
successfully.
Now, of course, and especially like once you get a few decades into the R&B genre, you can have full blown verses with straight up hip hop, but it can't be an R&B song without like someone singing, right? And of course, the like every time we have an episode, I'm constantly faced with just my lack of musical knowledge. But I don't, would it be like the like background, like just the beat? Like it's always got like I don't know. I feel like R&B has like a specific beat type. Like it's got a strong backbeat. I don't know what. I
What
don't
do
know
you
if
mean,
it's
something like on the production side or the
yeah,
vocal side?
on the production side.
On the production side, well, it's kind of hard to say because R&B is such a broad genre. However, there is usually a good melody that follows the lyrics in some form or fashion. Like the lyrics either follow the melody or some sort. It is the instrumentation is equally part of the music of the
Yes,
song as well as the lyrics. Like
yes, yes,
they
yes,
go
yes.
hand in hand.
That's kind of what I was getting at. Yeah, the fact that the beat like basically what you just said, it plays such a pivotal role in the song along with the lyrics. Like you
Hmm.
really got to have both of those hand in hand.
Hmm.
Um, I know this isn't really like a textbook definition I'm saying right now. I'm just kind of explaining what it is, but to me, that's where I kind of landed on. That's what R&B is. All that I just said, it encompasses all of that. Is there anything I left out? Anything you want to expand on for that
No,
definition?
no. I mean, like coming from from your experience and listening to the genre and hearing some songs for the first time, I think that's a pretty solid definition. I can get into a quick summary of R&B music, and again, this is just a simple overview. We're not gonna do a deeper dive. This is kind of just like an overview. So I can't stress that enough because R&B music has been around for like 70 something years, and we can't cover all of that. Not at this point. I just it's too much. So here's a quick summary. R&B, which stands for rhythm and blues, is a fusion
Mm.
of
Oh my god! Of course, it stands for. I didn't even think about what it stands for. Well, see, now I kind of feel like an idiot thinking I'm over here a genius for making the blues connection when it's in the name.
I thought you knew that when you said
No,
it. Wow, that was a light bulb moment. But yes,
it's one
R&B
of those
stand.
things. Yeah, you do. Just again, man. Like I had this nebulous idea of what R&B is, and I guess I never thought too much about what is R&B. Yeah, of course,
Yes,
it stands for something.
yes,
How did I not
absolutely.
even? Okay, sorry. Continue.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Oh.
Hey, you're not alone. There's somebody out here listening to the podcast right now had that same moment.
Yeah, let us know if I'm not alone in that, please. I don't want to be the only dumb one.
But yes, R&B stands for rhythm and blues, and is actually a fusion of several early Black American music art forms dating back to the early 1940s.
Oh.
R&B contains elements of soul, gospel, jazz, and of course the blues. Which, when you said that, I was just like, okay, he all to it. Also, it must be noted that some white rock music is a derivative of R&B music. And I'm looking at you, Elvis fans, because that's basically what he did. The fans that love Elvis, he literally stole black music and turned it into quote unquote pop music. But that's for another discussion.
Yeah.
Uh, just a little interesting fun fact that I found out there while doing a little quick research on this. The term was actually coined by a guy named Jerry Wexler in 1947 when he was editing the charts for Billboard,
Hmm.
the trade journal back in the day, which is now like a website, but yeah, it started as a trade journal back in the 1940s. Mainly because the record companies that were issuing black popular music at the time found that the way they were categorizing their music was kind of demeaning. So around 1949 is when they came up with the term rhythm and blues to describe black music because
Okay.
they had to keep everything separate for whatever reason. But like I said, R&B music started way back in the 1940s. So going way back from like to Sam Cooke and Etta James and Nina Simone and some of those other people, and it continues all the way through today with current artists like Beyonce, The Weeknd, Chris Brown, etc., etc. Shout out to SZA, Summer Walker, people who are out there who are actually still maintaining the R&B sound with a little bit of modern flair and so forth, as well as Lady Ray and Erica Badu and Jill Scott. These artists who are, in my opinion, are trying to keep the legacy of traditional R&B music alive while maintaining a modern day aesthetic. So again, another disclaimer: we're not covering 70 years worth of R&B music.
No.
So it's bad enough that I had to curate a small list of 100 songs for Brandon to listen to. So, but yeah. Ultimately, let's just start with transparency. So this is how I did this for Brandon, because I wanted him to understand like the different decades and the different eras of R&B music. I wanted to start in the 70s. Obviously, like I said, it went way back in the 40s, but to me, 70s was kind of like a good starting point to kind of get a context of the evolution of R&B music. So, and I created a different playlist for each decade for him to listen to. And that way he can kind of be like pinpoint the different sounds and understand the evolution of the music. So, what were your thoughts on the 70s and 80s playlist that I gave you?
Well,
Were
first of
they,
all, just in general over all of the playlists for each of the decades, I'm glad you did it this way because 100% it allowed me to pick up on that evolution, like you were just talking about, of the
Mhm.
genre through the decades and just how it's been influenced by other genres that have themselves grown and evolved and changed over generations. Of course, I'll probably touch on that more as we go along. For the 70s and 80s specifically,
Mhm.
um, definitely it sounds pretty different from modern R&B, like I was just saying.
Absolutely.
But I mean, without a doubt, it still has a lot of the same genes that like modern R&B and like not even just modern, but like all the way through since then, like the gene, like the DNA of the genre is still very much there.
Mhm.
Just quick aside, my voice seems to be cutting out, so if I sound a little weird, just forgive me for that.
No, it's okay. I mean, like you were doing all that singing the past couple of weeks. I'm quite sure.
Definitely attempting to. Um, for the 70s, I feel like maybe not all of the songs on the 70s playlist you sent, but a good majority, like maybe at least half of them, were or are sampled in pretty popular like hip hop songs
Mhm.
later on down the road.
Absolutely.
Like Ready or Not, Here I Come by Delphonics is first of all, you got me like later. I think it's a Missy Elliott song if I remember right in the
That's correct.
90s.
That's correct. Yep. You caught that
Um,
Easter egg.
yeah, so that one is the sample of this. It's also the sample of Moral of the Story by Watsky,
Okay.
which was the first, whenever I was first listening to it, since, I was starting in the 70s, I hadn't gotten to that Missy Elliott song yet. That was my first thing. I was like, oh, this is Moral of the Story. And the
Mhm.
moral of the story. Anyways,
Mhm.
um,
Also, jumping on that too. So I heard that song, the Delphonic song. So I heard the Missy Elliott song first. I thought that was an original production, and then I come to find out that it was a sample of the Delphonic song. I went back and listened to the Delphonic song. I was like, okay, clearly that's where they got that from. Then I listened to it, when I was listening to it for the first time again. That's also where the Fugees got their "Ready or Not" song, which is a hip hop song, where she goes, "Ready or not, here I come, you
yep,
can't hide." And I
yep.
was like, damn, they like that song is like prevalent, and most people don't even know that the Delphonics song
I didn't.
existed.
Most of these that were like samples, I was not like. Also in the 70s, Between the Sheets by the Isley Brothers is Big Papa by Notorious B.I.G.
Mm-hmm.
I never knew that that was a sample. I just thought that was one of Biggie Smalls' great, beats tracks that
Yeah.
he's got. Like,
Speaking of that song
um,
as well, that's one of your favorite songs that introduced you to "Ignorant Shit" by Jay-Z.
mm-hmm.
Use that
Also
same
true.
sample. Use that
Yep.
same sample.
Also true. Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Um, a question for you though: Wild Flower by the New
Mm-hmm.
Birth.
Yeah.
Is that one also a sample? Because that one sounded so familiar, but like I think the singing on it kind of threw me off and made me like second guess, and I couldn't quite place if I'd heard that in another song. Maybe I just heard that.
What you did? So that Easter egg you didn't catch?
I mean, I caught that. I was pretty confident that it was. Like, I even made a note. Like, I think this is a sample of something. I just couldn't think of what songs it's in.
Make it unpredictable. Jamie Foxx, Unpredictable with Ludacris.
Oh, see, I didn't catch that one.
Yep, that's it. So, oddly enough, like I came across New Birth. I mean, obviously the song is old as hell, but like somebody was playing a song and I was like, oh, I love this song. And then shortly after I fell in love with the song, the original song, Jamie Foxx came out with Unpredictable, and I caught it instantly. I was like, they sampled that song, and I love the New Birth. If anybody's an old school R&B head, go back and listen to the New Birth. Like
It was really
it's
good. I mean, I've not listened to more of them. At least
Yeah.
not intentionally listen to more than like,
Yeah.
But this song in particular was possibly my favorite out of the 70s. Of
I
course,
believe
you
it.
also have Best of My Love by The Emotions. Like,
That's yeah.
how do you not listen to The Emotions and just feel good and like love their song? Like, they're all of their songs, most of their songs are like classics for a reason, right?
Absolutely love the emotions. Like those girls, man. Yeah. I
Though I
can
do
I
want to
can
say
cut.
the song you open with and the beat goes on by the Whispers. The beat
Uh,
does indeed go on and on and on and on. It's a good song, don't get me wrong, but man, does it have to be 8 minutes long?
Man, you ain't never lied. That's the one thing about the old school songs, man. Like you press play, you like, okay, this song will ever cut off. Like you on the dance floor,
Yeah.
your legs cramping. You like,
Like,
I'm
jeez
breaking a
Louise.
sweat. Like, I need a break. Can you turn this song off?
But
Absolutely.
But yeah, so and then like I don't know, especially okay, so going from the 70s into the 80s, right?
Hmm.
Starting in the 80s is where, and I think this is because pop music had really started to blow up and become like a big mega genre in the 80s. But you really start to hear a lot of the more pop influences, I felt like, at least for
Yeah,
the songs you chose for the playlists.
absolutely. So
Um,
so like so the 70s to me, at like the 70s defined as a transition from disco into
there's definitely
R&B.
like the synthy. A lot of these songs have like the synthy disco bop
Mm-hmm.
to it, with
Mm-hmm.
like I said, the DNA, like the bare bone genes of like what would become R&B,
Exactly.
or what would become what we know today as R&B, I should say.
Exactly.
Um, and then
So
in the 80s, you have like Michael Jackson, who's like possibly the biggest pop star of like all time, making R&B hits from R&B
R&B King of
tracks.
Pop or whatever.
Like it definitely in the 80s, a lot of the songs from the 80s, even the ones outside of this playlist, I just the few R&B quotes on R&B songs I would know, could definitely be, if you're just a casual listener and don't like know too well the difference in genres, you could put it in R&B or pop, and like it could fall in either one of those, right?
Mm-hmm.
um there's definitely a lot more like sappy, I felt like,
Yes,
love songs in the
absolutely.
80s,
Yeah, yeah.
which definitely, love songs and like just songs about romance, whether it's trials and tribulations of a romantic partnership, or cheating, to I want to have sex with you later tonight, like everything in between that, right, is
Mm-hmm.
all kind of encompassed in R&B. But
Mm-hmm.
in the 80s in particular, it definitely, in my opinion, a lot of those like more love songs were definitely more kind of sappy. uh, I don't know. I guess I feel like that was kind of the pop influence.
Yeah, yeah.
Songs like "Shower Me with Your Love," "Love Need," and "Want You," and "Heartbeat" kind of near the beginning of the playlist. Like
Mm-hmm.
all of those were just like, okay. I mean, these are nice love songs, but they're just like, I don't know, kind of over the top, gushy, sappy. I don't know what else, another word to describe it
No,
would be.
that's 100%. And shower me with your love. On a personal note, so apparently when I was like what 3 or 4 years old, when that song would come on, I would sing it like at nauseum. So my family still makes fun of me every time that song comes on. Because I used to sing that song.
And again, they're not bad songs. Just like as you listen to the lyrics of them, it's like, man,
Oh yeah,
this is like,
sappy. It's like okay,
it's like
dude.
over
Like
the top romantic. Like,
yes, yes,
just yeah.
yeah. But that was that era where everything was like always had a little foggy tint to it, and
Mm-hmm.
had like that whole aesthetic during the 80s or whatever. But also the 80s was also to me, so 70s was a transition from disco into R&B, or more soulful, and then to me the 80s was the transition from soulful into more electronic sounds into the music, because like you have songs like Computer Love and
Oh yeah, "Computer
and
Love" was definitely the biggest one of that. The biggest example of what you're saying, for sure.
yeah,
That one,
absolutely.
just on that whole 80s playlist, that one was, I felt like sonically the most different,
Synthesize.
unique, synthesized. Yeah, definitely the most synthesized.
Yeah, absolutely.
Um,
So a little fun fact on this playlist that I included on here for you. Orange Juice Jones, The
hmm
Rain.
Yeah,
I saw you and him walking in the rain. That song.
yeah.
Um, he was the first R&B artist signed to Def Jam, and Def Jam Records was the premier hip hop record label founded
Oh,
by
okay.
Russell Simmons. So he was like the first R&B artist signed to that record label. So I thought that was kind of interesting to see the evolution of this is where R&B and Def Jam, which is
Yeah,
the
that
same
is
label.
interesting.
Hmm.
On that same song, another
Uh,
note about that same song. This is
uh,
the one I was asking you about before. There's no way this guy. I don't think I've heard any other Orange Juice Jones songs. So I don't like. Do most of his songs going to take on this style of sound that's
I
similar to in this, or is this kind of like a
honestly, I wouldn't even know without knowing. So to me, this is the example of that one song by that one artist.
okay? Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, this song in particular, then not maybe not the rest of his discography, but this song in particular, there's no doubt in my there's like 1,000% chance that this song was a heavy influence on Two Door Cinema Club.
Okay.
Because like I legit, whenever I was first listening through it, I think this song came up whenever I was like driving to or from work, and I had to like unlock my phone to double check who the artist was because I was like, this sounds exactly like Two Door Cinema Club. Like
Okay.
several of their songs from their album Game Show sound just like so eerily similar to this. It's just uncanny.
Huh.
Which I just thought
Interesting.
was neat to like hear a song from like 4 decades prior, 3 decades prior. That's just like so obviously an influence of a band I really like.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not even like the same genre because they're an indie rock band and this is
Mm-hmm.
like an R&B song, but just yeah,
The influence is deep, man.
the influence is deep from the voice to even the like the sound, the song, like the sounds of the song itself. Like I don't know, it was very cool to see. Just wanted to bring that up. I don't know. I know I texted you before. You're not super familiar with Two Door Cinema Club, but if anyone listening is, hopefully you will listen to that song and back me up on that.
Sweet. Okay. So now, to me, the '90s is
Well, wait,
when.
I got just one more note
Oh, go ahead.
for this specific 80s track. How Deep Is Your Love by Keith Sweat.
Yes.
Good song. I understand Keith Sweat is like, he's one of the bigger names in the like older R&B game, I feel like. Cuz like I don't really know much of his songs, but I definitely 100% know the name Keith Sweat.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's just this song, but I was not the biggest fan. He's like very nasally on this song. Is that just me?
No, Keith Sweat is known for his crying on records.
Like, yeah, man, it was kind of whiny. He was
Yeah,
kind of
whining
crying
like
a little
Keith.
bit.
Yeah.
Okay, I needed to ask if that was just my own interpretation or if that's a
No,
common thing. But okay,
no, no,
he's
no.
just
People.
that's his style is whiny. Got it.
Yeah. Whiny, sappy a little bit. I mean, so I chose that song because me personally, I love that beat personally. So that beat
The
goes
beat is
hard.
good. I mean,
Yeah,
I definitely like it. Wasn't a song I like skipped. Just as I was
yeah.
listening to it every time, I'd be like, and it wasn't. It's really just certain. There's certain parts,
Mm-hmm.
like there are certain words he hits. There's like you're like into a line with like yeah or something. It's like yeah,
Mm,
that's terrible. But it's just like
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. He's very whiny. Like he has a
yeah.
song called Nobody, and if you listen to that song, you will definitely hear the whining. Who can lie you like me? Nobody. Like that's how the whole song goes. It's like okay, Keith, we get it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but okay, on to the '90s, which like where do you even want to begin with this?
okay. So to me, like I said, 70s was disco into soul, and then 80s was kind of like soul into synthesizing and kind of transitioning into that. 90s is when R&B fell in love with hip hop.
Yes, that's exactly
And
what I have written down in my notes. Actually, well,
mhm,
I
and
fmy like the reason that happened though, based on my kind of recent, thanks to you, more uh, my gained knowledge for like older hip hop, right?
mhm,
Um, I feel like hip hop itself
mhm,
had especially through the 80s, but like once the 90s hit, it like really had evolved in a lot of different ways to get to be like a specific sound of like 90s era hip hop is like very specific, right, in my head.
yeah.
And I think that specificity, I probably didn't say that right.
Ooh, look at you,
um,
big word. Okay, big word alert.
but I feel like that like just the how that genre of hip hop evolved into like the sound that it evolved into just meshed so well with R&B. And I think the way
Mhm.
you put it really, really well, actually. They fell in love. Like, this, the genre's really just like, it was a marriage of like two perfect sounds of like, they just go so well together.
Absolutely. And this is the time that genres were siloed against one another. So it was like either you were hip hop, either you were R&B, either you were disco, you were this, you were that. But then in the 90s is when things started crossing over a little bit, slightly a little bit. So there was like a little bit of there were a little tears in the garden wall, if you would.
Mm-hmm.
So or the walled garden is what I meant to say. So and I put this in specific order because you can hear the early hip hop influence, like the that kind of rap flow or
Mm-hmm.
whatever, and then you can see towards the end how the hip hop evolved, R&B evolved with it. So uh, it's this playlist is so beautiful. I'll let you cherry pick wherever you want to go. Where you want to go, we can talk about it. What songs? What songs did you? You know what? Let's go negative first because I want to have a good time afterwards. What songs you didn't like on this playlist? Or what songs didn't resonate with you?
Hold on, hold on. Let me pull it up. Let me get my eyes on it here.
Get your eyeballs on it.
Okay. Surprisingly, you may not appreciate this, but literally the very first song you put on the playlist, "Poison" by Belle Biv DeVoe.
What? You didn't like Poison?
I didn't hate it. Don't get me wrong. There's not a single song for the '90s, at least, that I like outright. It was just like, ugh, this song sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I just didn't really vibe with that one.
Okay.
I would say. Um, dude, that's honestly a hard question, man. I mean, there's how do I want to put this? There's some songs that like this is really hard because like I did like the majority of them. Like you went above and beyond like picking the songs for this one. There's just some songs I guess I like didn't really connect with, or were maybe still like kind of like the '80s. There's some songs that were still a little sappy at times, and like
100%.
some of the songs that were like a little more poppy.
Mm-hmm.
Um, like I understand he's the king of pop and all, but I've never been a huge Michael Jackson fan. So like, Remember the Time by him was like one that I was like, okay, like I'll always like, I appreciate him like skill wise. I know he's like crazy talented and there's a reason he's like, been elevated as he has. But just
Mm-hmm.
for me, again, my own personal bias against pop, the more poppy songs
Okay.
kind of went under a little bit. Didn't quite make it to the top of my list.
Okay. Okay. I'll take that dagger out of my back in just a moment. Um. So, do you want to just go down in order, and we kind of can just chat about each one real quick?
You want to talk about each song?
Well, not. I mean, each or each cluster. I know we're going through like 100 songs. Don't worry. Don't worry,
Let
y'all.
me just kind of jump around here and talk about some
Okay.
random ones, I guess. Right. So like one thing I did like is like lyrics wise, in addition to like we were saying sonically, it really tied it all together. I feel like one thing in particular this era, especially near or this decade of R&B does, especially near like the last few years of the '90s,
Mm-hmm.
um, is again kind of like we were saying, is they're tying in like the influences from different genres are like so obvious and like makes them just really great music that like you hadn't been made before that, right?
Yeah.
But in addition to that, you also get like lyrically a big step up in a lot of these songs. I felt like or like the topics of the song. So like songs like "Forever My Lady"
Mm-hmm.
by, correct me if I'm saying this wrong, Jodeci. Jodeci.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Okay. Yeah. So that's pronounced Jodeci.
Jodeci. Okay.
Yeah. 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 I apologize, y'all. Yeah,
Yeah.
my friend didn't know any better. I apologize.
I
Don't
didn't.
hurt
I
him. Don't
didn't.
hurt him. Don't hurt him.
But that's a beautiful song about like having a baby and like having a new family and like how precious like
Mm-hmm.
that is to him,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it just
Yeah.
like hits like I mean, again, compared to like the songs you had chosen for like the '70s and '80s playlist,
Mm-hmm.
even especially compared to like the love songs of like the '80s, like this one just hits like so much harder, right?
Yeah.
It's got so much more like emotional weight to it.
Yeah.
Um, in general, love songs move away from being sappy, and the singing tends to have like a lot more emotion. Like "If I Ever Fall in Love Again" by Shy, I felt like was like
Mm-hmm.
it's a really beautiful song, man. Like if I ever fall in love again, it's gonna be someone like you. Like I want it to be someone who I'm like actually friends with and get along with. Blah blah. Like it's just like good sentiments, like sung well,
Mm-hmm.
and not like overly dramatic, sappy, like over the top
Yeah,
topic
I
or
agree.
subject matter. Okay, so of course you had to put the song "Pony" on here,
Of course.
right? That song's a classic, but I have to say, man, and I have this thought like every time the song comes on, the yeahs in the background, yeah, yeah, yeah. That to me sounds like someone burp talking the word yeah every time.
Are you talking about that?
Yeah,
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 yeah, yeah, the frogs or whatever. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Still, of course, like I said, great classic song, but that always just takes me out a little bit and just makes me chuckle whenever I like hear that, especially like right at the beginning before the singing comes in.
Mm-hmm.
um, I do want to say it's interesting, just like in addition to having hip hop artists on like verses, you also have like Timbaland and Diddy, Puff Daddy, P Diddy,
Mm-hmm.
Diddy, Puff, whatever his name was at the time. Now, whatever, it's changed like 18 times. I mean, you get like big like hip hop producers also coming in and making some of these, which I felt
Mm-hmm.
like just again continues to like bridge that gap between
Yep.
the two. And in fact, if you took out or like if these songs didn't have like the like melodic singing and like powerful belting notes that some of them have, you could easily just like slap hip hop R&B or hip hop rap label on it and like it would pass, right?
Exactly.
Um, so another song that really stood out to me was "Take Everything" by Gerald Levert. This was
Yep.
the song, or it was like a light bulb moment. It just all connected for me. I was like, oh, so much R&B music is blues.
Yeah.
Like this is like possibly the most bluesy song you have out of all the playlists,
Mm-hmm.
in my opinion.
Yep.
Um, but what's interesting about this was since we went 80s, 90s, or 70s, 80s, 90s, all the way up to 2020, it's like this one is also near the bottom half, if I remember right, of the
Mm-hmm.
90s, I
Yep.
think.
Yep. Yeah, that was like around 97, 98 when that song came
Yeah, yeah,
out.
yeah. So whenever I was going back and re-listening through the 70s and 80s and the prior 90s songs, it was kind of cool because I was then looking at it through that lens. I didn't really look at it through the lens of blues until that song made that connection happen for me, and then I kind
Mm-hmm.
of picked up more so on a lot of the other songs. Just like, oh no, man, this is bluesy, even if like just bits and pieces of it here and there. Or this song totally, I could see where the influences come in, and that was just like really interesting for me personally as a, I guess, blues fan.
Mm-hmm.
Blues is such a weird thing. It's nice to hear blues in like other genres though, I feel like.
Yeah, and on that particular remix in general, when I saw the video for it, which I was trying to find a good quality video for it, but I had a hard time finding it. The original song it plays pretty much like very similar, but like the remix in particular, it blew my mind entirely when they switched at the end of the song and went to like an opera style,
Mm-hmm.
like I believe Phantom of the Opera kind of thing, and then Joe Levert like end up like going like completely off at the end of the song, and I hit that note. I just I was just like just slow clap. Like I was like, this is phenomenal because like in the music video, they pretty much are acting out the lyrics verbatim, pretty much. And
Really?
then yeah, so like like so it's like she picks up the phone and was like singing through the phone to him, and it's like a split screen, so you see like his point of view and her point of view of the whole thing. And then towards the end, like a lightning strike, and it turns into like a Phantom of the Opera where they have like the half face thing, and they go into like a whole symphonic, like it was like it literally turns into an opera at the end of the song. And the video like this is back in the day when BET played music videos like for like 18 hours a day. And like I would just sit there just like on my days off, or if I set my old man alert VCR on record and like try to catch some music videos that I wanted to see. It just they don't make stuff like that no more, man.
I really don't. That does
Yeah.
sound really awesome.
Yeah,
Like
it's great.
just going above and beyond, like for the visual
Yeah, the
side of stuff like
visual.
that, and like
Yeah.
even just the remix itself is like opera remix. Like you
Hmm.
don't see that every day.
Exactly, exactly. But it was dope. I enjoyed it.
Okay, well, some of the other songs I like. I mean, there's a lot of like No Scrubs by TLC. Um, just a
Ugh.
lot of like more like women like point of view. Like I don't want to say this.
No, 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 you're
Like
right.
women artists are like really given a voice to like express their point of view and like their experiences in a way that I feel like hadn't really been done before. Because
Hmm.
like where I was thinking about this a little bit like yesterday and earlier today, I feel like with the pop influence, right? Like a lot of like female pop singers, you kind of get that too in pop music, but pop music in general is like a lot more censored, I guess. If that makes sense, it's a lot more like clean, like to the masses. Whereas R&B can get a little bit more like dirty with it, and a little bit more like real, raw, vulnerable. I guess, right? If that
Yeah,
makes sense.
more on that later. But yeah,
Okay. Well, I felt like I started to like really pick up on that in several songs in the '90s. From stuff like I just said, like No Scrubs is like more of like a sassy like
yeah,
I'm gonna. I know it's like overplayed to death and everything now, but
yeah.
I mean, you put it on here for a reason because
I
like
did. I
it
did.
it very much like kind of in a lot of ways encapsulates like a lot of the stuff,
Yeah.
a lot of genre of R&B from this time. Like Bills, 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 Destiny Child right after that. You know, kind of the same vein, I guess.
So I put those. I put the last, almost the last, the last part of the playlist. So No Scrubs, Bills, Bills, Bills. There You Go by Pink and Makes Me Ill by NSYNC. There's an Easter egg with that. Did you catch it or not?
No, do they all share the sample or something that I missed?
Not quite sample, but they're all produced by the same producer. So because if you
Yeah,
notice, like
I did not catch that.
they all had that same da-da-ding, da-da-ding, da-da, like that little guitar sound. They all use that, and they all had that same little like little bubble noise or whatever.
Okay, now that you say it, yeah.
Yeah, when you listen to those back to back, I was wondering if he's going to catch that or not. Also, I wanted to highlight that when Pink, the rock singer Pink, when she first came out, she was R&B. So that's the same Pink.
Which did surprise me actually.
Yeah.
Having NSYNC and Backstreet Boys at the very end because I know they came out like 97, 98
Well,
around there. Like as a band themselves, like they came out like late '90s, right?
I would say mid 90s, and the reason
Okay.
why I put them on there in particular was I wanted you to catch the influence that R&B had on pop music. Because to me, when it comes to pop music isn't a genre; it's just a category of popular music. When you try to describe pop music, it's literally based on when, because what's popular now isn't popular then. So there is no genre for pop music. So I wanted you to hear the influence that R&B had on pop music around this time because they literally kind of ripped off some of the R&B sounds and then add that same little dead 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 like that little stab thing sound or whatever that they
Mm-hmm.
put in all the pop songs like Britney Spears and all of them. It's basically just like you were saying earlier, which I was like holding my tongue because I want to jump into it right then. Um, they basically took R&B music, cleaned it up for the masses, quote unquote, and then reissued it as pop music. Whereas the R&B artists who were doing similar sounds were getting pushed down because again everything was siloed at this time. So you had urban radio and then you had pop radio,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people couldn't cross over. I actually saw a recent clip not too long ago. I wasn't gonna put Whitney Houston on here on this playlist, but
I was gonna
Whitney,
ask you about that actually. Why,
yeah.
why is like possibly the Queen of R&B not on here?
Well,
I don't know if
I
that's actually her title or not, but
I mean, so with Whitney, like there's different eras of Whitney. So Whitney was a pop princess when she first came out,
mm-hmm.
and then she kind of came over to R&B, and then I couldn't find the right song I wanted to use because it was like I wanted I'll always love you, but I was like that might be too sappy, and then there's some later Whitney stuff that was kind of okay, but not really like popular. So I was like, okay, again, that's part of the disclaimers. There's a lot of people that I want to put on this list, but I was like, I can't put everybody on here.
That's fair.
But ultimately, like the reason I brought her up just now was I was online and I saw a recent clip where Whitney kind of was she was talking her shit as she always does, or did, excuse me. So she was on MTV News talking shit about how MTV dissed her because when like she had a song that was out and it was too R&B for MTV, so they wouldn't play it. But then her song became so popular that they had to play it because when she tried to put it on MTV, they rejected it. But then once it became popular, then it got onto MTV. So that's why I have a disdain for pop music to a certain degree, like how they used to treat R&B music and such. Because again, it was always urban radio or or basically black radio versus other radio. So it was kind of hard for people to transition. I would say in the later '90s is when R&B started to transition into pop, and that's where I think the 2000s R&B to me is when R&B goes pop because it's like they kind of cleaned it up a little bit, and a lot of the songs kind of became way more generic.
I would agree with that. It definitely had pop influences before that,
It
but
did.
this was it was more.
It became mainstream
Well, yeah,
essentially.
it was more like before. It was like definitely still like R&B with noticeable pop influences. Whereas what you're talking about, and I completely agree with you, is like more of a fusion
Hmm.
almost between with R&B and pop instead of just like some influences and some similar sounds being used or whatnot, right?
Yeah, because like I mean, because like if you think like if you go back and listen to like Christina Aguilera's "Genie in a Bottle," that's an R&B song. So if you take Christina Aguilera off of that and put like I don't know a Lauryn Hill or Janet Jackson or something on top of that, that's an R&B song. But because it's Christina Aguilera, it's a pop song.
Which you blew my mind for the second time today. Whenever you're like, pop music is just popular music, and I'm like, of course it is, duh. So that's R&B and pop music are two things you've blown my mind with today. Just want to, for the record, it
You're
makes so
welcome.
much. Of course, pop music is just whatever's popular at the time.
Exactly.
It makes so much
So,
sense.
just a couple little Easter eggs that in the '90s list that I wanted to highlight real quick. Um, that and then we can move on to the 2000s. Jodeci. Jodeci basically helped start the career of Missy Elliott and Timbaland. Missy
Oh,
sung for
okay.
Jodeci, and they got signed through Jodeci's group, and then Missy and Timbaland got together, and then because Missy and Timbaland got together, that's where Genuine, Aaliyah, and all of them came from through that connection. Escape, Who Can I Run To? They were based here in Atlanta, and
Oh,
Ti's wife is one of the members from that group.
really?
Yeah, so if you ever hear Ti and Tiny, Tiny is a member from Escape.
Oh,
Yeah,
I've heard of the group Escape before, but I've never really like listened to them. Listened to them.
yeah, they're great. They're fantastic.
What about? Can you? I don't know anything about the group Blackstreet, but I have known the song No Diggity, and I've loved the song No Diggity for a long time. I don't even know when, or where I first heard that song, but that's like that's a classic. I feel like that was
That's a
definitely one of my more favorites
mhm,
from not just this era or this decade, but from like all of them.
absolutely okay. I get into that. So Blackstreet, one of the founding members of Blackstreet is Teddy Riley. Now, I will say Backstreet, Blackstreet. Hmm. Think about that. So anyway, so if you go back to that Key Sweat song we talked about, "How Deep Is Your Love,"
Mm-hmm.
Teddy Riley produced that song,
Oh,
and Teddy Riley produced "Remember the Time" for Michael Jackson. So Teddy Riley actually produced a lot of R&B music back in that time, and Michael Jackson's album "Dangerous" was majority produced by Teddy Riley.
okay, okay.
Um, Teddy Riley, it's a long story with that, but Teddy Riley actually had beef with Suge Knight, and there's a reason why Dr. Dre is on his
Man,
song.
who didn't have beef with Suge Knight? I'm surprised you and me
Yeah,
don't have beef with Suge Knight at this point here.
right. Listen to this podcast, he might.
That's true.
But yeah, yeah. So there's a connection with that as well. Yeah, Teddy Riley. Also, Teddy Riley, his music was based in Virginia, so that whole his whole sound basically helped put Virginia on the map. And other people from Virginia, Timbaland, Missy, uh, Pharrell Williams, Teddy Riley, all of them kind of knew each other in that community, and their sound is still prevalent to this day. So
Okay.
that's pretty dope there. Another Easter egg when we are talking about people crossing over Mariah Carey or Fantasy, that was a big deal at the time because Mariah Carey again squeaky clean pop artist,
Right.
Visions of Love, linking up with a dude from the Wu Tang Clan,
Right.
like
Right.
so that was like a whole big thing. The Easter egg I had with that is Return of the Mac and Fantasy uses the same sample. If you listen to it back to back, you hear the same sample that they use. And of
Okay.
course, Fantasy has been sampled again. Mariah Carey's version has been sampled by Lotto, the rapper. Big Energy. That's a sample of Fantasy
Mm.
by Mariah Carey, and then Mariah Carey's on a remix of that. So that makes me think now. I was like, okay, a sample of a sample of a sample of a sample is like it just keeps going like layers and layers and layers. Let me
Which
see.
I'll admit, I'm a I don't know if I would say I'm like a huge Mariah Carey fan. Like I don't really know a lot of her songs, but I'm a
Hmm.
huge fan of her voice.
Hmm.
Like I mean, obviously she's still relevant today because she's a great singer, so like it's no surprise. But especially
Well,
like '90s era Mariah Carey, just beautiful singer. So I think her beautiful singing voice might have distracted me from the the beat a little bit.
100%. I mean, when she does sing,
Yeah, which she
shots
doesn't sing
fired.
a lot on that song, to be fair, but
Yeah.
so it's more ODB
Uh,
coming in. But
yeah. Let me see. So, of course, One in a Million, Ponies, Sock It to Me, all those were produced by my boy Timbaland. Yes, there's some Timbaland bias. If you listen to the first episode of the podcast, you know I'm a big Timbaland fan, so it's gonna happen.
oh, okay. So in my bed in the In My Bed So Def remix
Yes.
or mix, those
Yes.
are so. I didn't even realize until I think like the third time listening through this and actually paying attention to what like the songs were like more closely that
Hmm.
that it was like a remix of the song, like just so drastically different.
Thank you. That was the point I wanted to bring up. The '90s R&B time period is when the remix was crucial. Like you have the original slow version that was a bop, and then you would have the remix featuring a rapper or somebody else, and basically put that sappy love song in the club. So you had the club version and you had the romantic version, and they were milking both of them like that. And hopefully you notice that Drew Hill is the group that Cisco came from. Thong Song. Did you recognize that?
No,
Oh my god.
I know Thong Song though.
Yeah, yeah. So that's the group Cisco. Cisco was the lead singer of Drew Hill before he went solo. So
I mean that you now that you say that, I've not even thought about Thong Song, and I don't know how long,
right.
but that kind of rhymed there.
Yeah.
But
Brandon
no,
Lee got a new
now that
album
you
coming
say
out.
that, I definitely hear it in my head. Like,
Hmm.
yeah, makes
Yeah.
sense.
Yes. So yeah. So that's why I wanted to put those back to back because honestly, I'm so used to the So Def mix that or remix So Def version with the Brad and Jermaine Dupri, which A Town represented. That like I forgot that there was a slow version of the song, and now I was just like, oh, and I listened to the slow version. I was like, damn, I forgot how good the slow version was.
And the slow
Uh,
version is very good. Like
mm-hmm.
it's a good infidelity
Yeah,
song. And then
100%.
the remix definitely still has those elements, but it's just like a totally different vibe.
Absolutely, absolutely. Did you catch the other Easter egg I left in there for you? Janet Jackson, anytime, any place.
Anytime, any place. Yeah, that one definitely is. That one's been sampled a few times. I'm pretty sure, and like some like I mean, I'm sure maybe more than a few times probably, but in a few songs that like I know of.
Okay, well, I know one in particular that I was hoping you was gonna catch that right out the bat.
Uh, uh, Poetic Justice, Kendrick
Yes,
Lamar.
yes.
Yeah,
Okay, cool.
yeah. I definitely got that. Was another one where, for some reason, I have never really listened to any Janet Jackson before. So whenever that song came on, I was like, "Hold up, wait a minute, what song is this? This isn't Kendrick Lamar. What's happening?"
Like you just there waiting on Kendrick's verse to come on.
Yeah,
And that is another person who is aging like a fine wine. Janet Jackson. Oh my god, she looks so good.
she's
Um,
yeah. I was actually my a guy I work with is like a huge Janet Jackson fan, and he actually had a chance several years back. But he had a chance to like be in an elevator with her, and
oh
she like
wow.
actually like stopped and talked to him for a second, and he was like just so like starstruck and gushing. He was like telling me the story.
Oh
Um,
jeez.
but whenever he was telling me about it, I was just thinking like, oh man, I'm not. And this was like right before we decided on this topic, and like I had all these playlists, and of course this song we're talking about or whatever.
Hmm.
So I looked her up. I was just like, how old is she now? Like, what is she looking like? And you are right. She's like aging like a fine wine is a great way to put it.
Stunning.
100%.
Stunning, beautifully stunning. But yeah, and the other honorable mentions: Lauryn Hill, Erica Badu, like
Oh,
Next
of
Lifetime,
course. Like
like
those are names that are like still brought up and like people know about them. Like they're still relevant today. And I feel like
yes.
honestly for a lot of these, pretty much all of the names you picked for the playlist are
Hmm.
people that are still relevant in music today in some way for the most
Yeah,
part.
a lot of them
Um,
are. So that
which was kind of crazy to me. Just that the like more so, way more so than like the 70s and 80s. This was really where like stars were made. I feel like
one
in the R&B
hundred
genre.
percent. The 2000s to me. Let me say that without me moving my paperwork. Okay, so transitioning to the 2000s, to me, that's when R&B goes pop, and to me, that's when true R&B, the traditional R&B, not traditional, but the traditional form of contemporary R&B from the 90s starts to fade away, in my opinion. Um, so on the 90s, on the 2000s playlist, let's hit a couple songs on there that stuck out to you.
Oh well, I mean, much like I just said about the '90s, this one also is just like hit after hit after hit after big name after big name after big name. I mean, you got Usher, Alicia Keys, Justin Timberlake, Rihanna, NSYNC, Britney Spears. Like, I mean, there's just so many like great songs on here, man.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, by Usher was like one of the songs of my youth. It's like
Mm-hmm.
one of the first like the song was like a gateway for me into this genre, these sounds of these styles of songs or whatever, however you want to say that. Make Me Want to Sing by Tank. I think that was one of the ones I didn't super vibe with for some reason.
Oh, the song is horrible, but
Okay.
I wanted you to I
Okay.
wanted you to catch the sample with it.
I did not
Um,
catch the sample, probably
are you
because I did not like the song, and I think it just really, really took me out of it. If I'm honest, I
okay?
was questioning why you put that one on there a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So I put that sample on there because it samples Minnie Riperton's "Loving You." It's easy.
Oh, dude, I even made a note whenever I was going back and re-listening through it. I was like, this Minnie Riperton song sounds familiar. I meant to
Yeah.
ask you that whenever we were doing the '70s. Like, where does this song come from?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
you did that a little bit where you like plugged the like you put the original song and then you plugged the song sample in later on.
Mm-hmm.
Cheeky.
Yeah. Yes, I had to plant some Easter eggs in there for you. Real quick, since we I forgot to mention it, going back to the '70s. Are you familiar with SNL at all? Like the cast
Saturday Night
members,
Live.
Saturday Night Live. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Okay, so you know the cast member Maya Rudolph.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
She's Minnie Riperton's daughter.
For real,
Yeah. Yeah.
dude.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, I didn't really know who.
Minnie
Like,
Riperton was.
yeah,
Yeah.
I didn't really know who Minnie Riperton was before this, but
Yeah.
that's
So
cool.
so when you listen to that song "Loving You Is Easy" because it's beautiful, that song was dedicated to Maya when she was a baby. And
Oh,
because Minnie Riperton, she passed early. She passed in Maya's early childhood from breast cancer. So if you
oh,
listen to the very end of the song, she goes Maya, 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 Maya. That song was
see,
dedicated to
I had
Maya.
no idea.
Yeah,
Well,
and
Rip
there's
Minnie,
yeah,
R.I.P.
yeah, and there's another song that it breaks my heart. There's a song called "I Don't Want to Go" that she sings, and it's basically a song that she knows she's dying, and she was like, "I don't want to go."
Mm,
And so they made
that's
a song.
tough.
Yeah, and that song in particular because that was like she was popular in the disco era, and that song was such a departure from disco that her label didn't really want to put the song out, but then people found the song and they loved it because it was such
I'm
a
sure it's so much emotion there.
exactly they fell in love with that. But yeah, so going back to the Tank version of the song, when I first heard that song, I was like, bro, ain't no way in hell your masculine ass voice needs to be singing this Minnie Riperton song. But I put this on this list so you can hear the sample and try to connect the dots. But
I definitely had a moment, like I said, where whenever I was re-listening and I had looped back around to the '70s and I got to
mhm,
the Minnie Riperton song, I was like, this is familiar.
mhm.
And maybe I didn't notice it the first time because I was just listening through it, but this is definitely familiar.
Yep.
But I guess it had to just be because, yeah, the
It,
song
it's so
just,
much. It's a lot of listening.
it's a
So
lot of listening, which definitely was part of it. But also, the Tank version was just like, bleh,
yeah,
a
yeah,
little
one hundred
bit from
percent. 100%. The Music Soul Child, Buddy, that's a sample of the Heartbeat song from the '70s.
Buddy. I like that one.
Yeah.
Buddy. Like, that
Mm-hmm.
song was a bop.
Yep.
Is that okay? It's not explicit. Is this song supposed to be like an innuendo esque at all, or is this legitimately about like I want to be whoever I'm partnered with? I want to be friends with. Is it
I
more of an
mean,
innocent, sweet song than what I was kind of thinking it might be?
it's kind of a guy that's basically trying to let's be friends and see what happens kind
Okay,
of song.
okay. Well then, I'm gonna even if it's not actually that, I'm gonna choose to believe that's what it is,
Yes.
because it's a much more sweet and happy feeling that gives me than how it could.
Than the nefarious version.
Yeah.
So some of the other songs that I put on here that I wanted to call out was the Girlfriends remix, NSYNC and Nelly, and then I'm a Slave for You, Britney Spears, produced by Pharrell Williams, aka the
I'm a
Neptunes.
slave for you.
Yep, and
That's
that was the song that it blew my mind that played on urban radio
it's
for a moment because it's produced by the Neptunes, so it was like okay, sure, let's try this out, and they try to play Britney Spears on black radio, and we was like, nah, we ain't feeling this, fam. So they eventually stopped. But they did try, because that's when Britney crossed over into hip hop, and Justin Timberlake went and grabbed Timberland and grabbed Pharrell Williams as well for his Justified album. This is when, like I said, they started going pop, R&B started going pop, and
Right.
things
You
just
definitely, I
started
mean,
emerging pop.
again, like you said, this album, or this playlist, I mean, rather, is filled with like quote unquote pop stars coming in,
Mm-hmm.
and like, yeah, like Slave for You is easily like, yeah, it deserves to be on this list and to talked about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, just as I was scrolling down the playlist to look at that song, the song
Mm-hmm.
right after it, Milkshake
Yep,
by
Pharrell Williams
Kels.
as well. Khalees.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, Khalees. My bad. I thought that was two L's. The note I made for this song was just milkshake dot 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 sigh slash facepalm. this,
Yep.
this song is like so overdone at this point. Was it like actually like did people like actually vibe to this song when it came out?
They did. They did. I mean,
Because it just seems like such a it's probably because of internet culture, and you know, I don't know exactly when in the 2000s this song came out, but it's been a good 15, 20 years since it did, and it's been memed a little bit here and there and everywhere else, so maybe that's probably playing giving me some bias on it, but it's
I
just hard for me to
mean,
listen to the song and not hear it as like a meme song.
I
My milkshake
mean,
brings other boys to the yard, and they're like, it's better than yours.
exactly, exactly. The moment that song appeared on Family Guy, I was like, I'm done.
Yeah, was actually one of the many examples that was scrolling through my head was the Family Guy use of it. Um,
Absolutely.
but I mean, some of the other songs I really liked on here, Justin Timberlake's "Cry Me a River," which again, if you didn't know, was I had to go back and look at the album because I wasn't sure if it was just Timbaland that helped him produce this. It was Timbaland and the Neptunes that helped him
Mm-hmm.
produce the album that "Cry Me a River" is from.
Mm-hmm.
But that was the start of Justin Timberlake's and Timbaland's long career working together since this point in
Absolutely.
time. They've collaborated so many different times, not even just with each other. They've collaborated like through other artists here and there. I mean, it's just I watched an interview or not too long ago, but several months back with just them two talking about how they
Mm-hmm.
like got to know each other and how they just vibed like
Yep.
immediately, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yes.
Um, Stutter by Joe with the double take remix. This song was definitely one that like I remember listening to as a kid, or at least like hearing as a kid, and it made me. I had like a whip, like a head snap, whip around moment when Mystical
Mm-hmm.
comes in, and he's just like, I'm not even gonna attempt to.
Quit your lie, ever watch it.
Yeah, man,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna attempt to impersonate him there. Just because, like, again, I definitely remember that song like back in
Mm-hmm.
the day, and it's been so long since I heard it. Like, as the song first came on, I was like, okay, yeah, I remember this song, stutter, stutter, blah 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 blah, blah. And then
Mm-hmm.
it's just like I said, he comes in at the end. I'm like, oh man, I
Mm-hmm.
forgot about the best part of the song.
Right? And you know what? And that's when like hip hop, like your style was distinctive. There will never be another Mystical.
Yeah, no, I don't see that happening. He's
Mm-hmm.
unique is definitely the word for him.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Of course, you got like more. Like I do really like the Fallen by Alicia Keys. The more like I mean, you get just a beautiful female singer. Alicia Keys is just a phenomenal singer. She comes in and she's just like belting her heart out. Like
Mm.
I love that.
Yeah.
And that's one thing I kind of realized about myself listening through all this is those style of R&B songs. Just like I'm like, oh man, sing it
Yeah.
to me, Alicia. Sing it to
Exactly.
me.
Yeah, she's singing specifically to you.
Yes.
Yeah. Controversial opinion. I don't think she's a great singer. It may be like I will say out of her whole discography, that may be like probably about 5 to maybe 10 songs max that I actually like. The rest of her stuff is just is it don't hit for me. Like, and I want to love her because like she's talented, but her music is just
Well, to
it's
be
not hit
fair,
for me.
I've not listened to her a ton. This is
Hmm.
I've probably only really listened to 5 to 10 of her songs, and they
Yeah,
might be the same 5 to 10 you're talking about. But
yeah,
this one in particular,
yeah.
I
This is a
super
classic.
dug. This was a classic.
Yep,
This was
that's her debut song when she first came out.
most of these because like the 2000s was whenever I like that was the era where probably like most people I really started getting into music and like due to our old friends, you know, LimeWire and accompanying people programs, whatever you would call them.
Mm-hmm.
I was
Yeah.
able to
Yeah.
really like expand my listening like territory.
Exp-
I don't
yeah.
know. I was able to expand like how much like the styles of music I was listening to. Right, I was able
Yeah.
to stuff I
Absolutely.
hadn't ever heard before came in. So many of these songs, and even outside of that, just so many of these songs were like radio hits
Mm-hmm.
that I would hear played on the radio. Like several of these songs, I remember playing at like the roller skate rink, right? Like places
Mm-hmm.
like that I would go to growing up as like a kid and young man. Like
Mm-hmm.
these songs are just like so many of these songs. Like whenever I was listening to them, it's just like immediately like strips me out of my head and throws me back into this time period and like specific places where I would hear these songs growing up,
Yeah.
which is
And
just
and that's the thing about the whole sampling thing. So when people sample certain songs, they automatically get that same feeling you just had, and then they listen to the new version. So when Jamie Foxx came out with the Unpredictable, it automatically brought me back to when the first time I heard New Birth. And
mm-hmm.
then I listened to the Jamie Foxx version. I was like, okay, now I'm paying attention to the lyrics now. But just when you hear the sound, it automatically takes you back. That's why, like, when people kind of like some people hate on the sampling culture, or whatever. I love that. Like, that's part of the art
I
form. Like,
100%. Like I definitely. I mean, it's people. I'm sure whenever people first started sampling, probably made the argument of it's like stealing other people's music. But I mean,
mm-hmm,
I agree wholeheartedly with what you just said. It's
yeah,
the use of sampling and like keeping the heart of that sound while oftentimes making little tweaks and adjustments or adding a few little bitty like notes or whatever, a few little sounds here and there just to spice up the song and make it fit whatever your version is of if it is. It's
mm-hmm,
like that's definitely part that's like it's 100% part of the art form of like making the music. It's part of the composition. It's not at all just ripping off, and like the way people have gotten creative from doing that is
mm-hmm.
like it's so ignorant to say, in my opinion, like, oh, you're just stealing someone else's music. And
Yeah, it's more to it than that. And then on the last part of the list, I wanted to showcase that there are still, around this time, there were still singers who were um, making traditional contemporary R&B music, whatever, like the Heather Headleys and the Vivian Greens and the Jill Scotts
I
around that
did
time
enjoy
period.
those because, like, I guess by the time I got through this playlist, I was kind of like, again, a lot of these songs were throwbacks, and I enjoyed the nostalgia of it. But these songs aren't necessarily like within my general listening experience most days today.
Hmm.
Um, but like just the vocalization, I guess more so than anything of these last few songs, just like hit me in a way that like not that I didn't like the songs on this playlist before, but
Hmm.
it just like you said, kind of brought it back around in a sense, and I was like, yes, I want some more of this.
One hundred
Uh,
percent.
yeah.
Yeah, I
Also,
totally
thank
agree
you
with
for
that.
putting the remix of "In Love with a Stripper" on
Yes,
there for me
you
because
you're welcome.
the original was even today is still just. I mean, it's not still overplayed, but it was so overplayed that for me, the original is like when I hear it, I'm just like, oh. But
Yeah,
the remix with extra verses and people and all that good stuff, definitely
yeah.
was spicy enough for me to like enjoy listening to it again. And T Pain is
I
phenomenal.
mean,
This was one of those songs I wouldn't have originally considered R&B, but then like listening to it in the context of this playlist, I'm like, of
of
course it
course.
is.
Yeah, yeah,
One
yeah,
hundred
yeah.
percent.
Yeah, I mean, T Pain, his first album was called, not first album, but one of his major albums was like rapper turned singer. So, I mean, so I had to put T Pain on there because he was on everybody's hooks. Also, The Dream, he's the one that produced Rihanna's Umbrella.
Mm.
So, and I'm not sure how accurate this is, but from what I've heard, he literally made that song on the iPad. And now that song is like the one of Rihanna's top hits.
Yeah, still
So
today. Yeah.
still to this day, everybody, anytime it rains, everybody says Ella, Ella, whatever. Um, but yeah, so I definitely have to put the Emotional Roller Coaster by Vivian Green. Like that song, I remember hearing that song during that time period, and it resonated with me. And that's the one thing about R&B music in general. Some of these things you may not have personally gone through, but you know somebody who has gone through it, and you listening to the songs. If the lyrics are good enough and the emotion and the vocalization is good enough, it will make you feel things.
Which the vast
Um,
majority of the songs you picked fall in
mhm.
that good enough category, in my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, so let's quickly talk about the 2010s, the 2010s, and the 2020s.
So, where to begin on these? It definitely, again, it still has, I feel like, elements, at least for the songs that like you picked, it has elements of everything that came before it, but definitely is
A quality
different.
drop, right?
So what?
I say it's definitely like a quality drop, right?
Kind of. I'm a little hesitant to put it that way. Um,
I would put it this way. To me, all right, so the 2010s is when R&B goes trap and merges with hip hop. So they fell in love, and then 2010s is when rap. I put it this way: the rap became R&B, and R&B became rap.
yeah,
And the lines like you really couldn't tell who was doing what because
the lines
all the
definitely
art
blur a lot more.
they blur a lot more, and then the artists themselves were doing a lot more. So this is when
Yeah,
like Chris Brown became a rapper, and then Lil Wayne became a singer. I mean, quote unquote singer, not to the extent of like the Mariah Carey singing styles or whatever, but they became more melodic. And I mean, I don't know. I put it this way: some people even consider Ja Rule a singer. So go figure that out. But I mean,
I don't think I will.
please don't. But I mean, we'll get into that later. That Ja Rule 50 Cent stuff. But I mean, they basically did that. They basically the rappers started being more melodic in their quote unquote raps or whatever,
Yeah.
and then the singers started rapping a lot more or whatever.
See, several of these songs I was like already familiar with just because like
Hmm.
obviously these are more recent. Like
Yeah.
these are songs I like remember definitely like playing on like the store whenever you or me would be at work back in the day, right?
Hmm.
Or just like out on the radio or whatever. I would still go to the clubs. Like I'd hear some of these songs in the clubs and whatnot.
Hmm.
Um, which also I spent a lot more time listening to the 90s and 2000s than I did the 2010s to 2020s, partly because I was already mostly familiar with a lot of these
Hmm.
in a more like recent way than I was the older songs that I kind of wanted to get reacquainted with. But I mean, I will say some of my favorite songs of R&B are on here, like Redbone by Childish Gambino,
I mean,
or
I have to throw that on there for you.
of course you had to throw that on for me. What was the other one? Drunken Love featuring
Hmm.
Jay Z. That's a classic, right?
Yeah.
Beyonce killing it.
Yep.
Got The Hills by The Weeknd, one of his like biggest hits still, and We
Hmm.
Can't Stop by Miley Cyrus. It's just like I'm
Yeah.
going. I'm not a huge Miley Cyrus fan, but that's one of the ones that like I don't know
Yeah.
brings me joy. It's a
Yeah.
happy.
I agree.
It's a good song.
Yep, yep. That was in Miley's Let Me Go on the R&B and Hip Hop phase
Yeah,
album, and I actually like that album to be honest.
I do too.
Yeah,
I
it's pretty.
legitimately did.
Yeah,
I like most of the songs on there.
yeah. And then just for a little Sonic throwback, like the Finesse song with Bruno Mars and Cardi B,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
how that song came out in 2010, but it's an homage to 90s R&B.
Oh, 100%. I enjoyed that one just
Yes,
for that exact fact that it was like the throwback style or whatever. Was
exactly.
was really nice.
Yep, yep. So and then jumping over to the 2020s, a lot of these songs, again, to me, the 2020s is when it's R&B is kind of sort of, I would say, this is like an R&B resurgence time period because there's a lot of artists out there now that this is when R&B kind of just went way too far into hip hop and rap. And I think there's some artists that are just like, I would say, rebelling against that sound and going back to the classic, almost 70s, 80s style of R&B music. Um, so this is to me nowadays more recent R&B. Number one, has gotten way more vulgar. So back in the day, you
Yes,
had songs
that
like
was one of my notes. Is it's a lot more. I feel like the hip hop influence of that has, I feel like reared its head a little bit more.
yeah, exactly. Because back in the day, in the 90s, you were singing songs about okay, in my bed, someone sleeping in my bed, talking about infidelity. Now the song is like, get this bitch out of my house, fuck you, hope. Like it's like, okay, can
Yeah,
we, okay, we don't have to literally say that. I mean, and again, not to denigrate all of today's R&B sound, but I mean, it's not the same. Like just lyrically, sonically, I mean, it's just the vocalization to me has gotten weaker. So to me, what they consider R&B isn't the same because the vocalization. I'll put it this way: it's not to say that autotune and stuff didn't exist in the past because you had the song Computer Love and they use a vocoder so you can hear
yeah.
like the synthesized sound, but there was still traditional singing layered on top of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Now they use the autotune as a requirement for these artists now, to where they don't even sound like themselves. And like those '90s artists like Jodeci, Escape, or whoever, when they perform live, they sound like the damn song because
Yeah.
that's what they sound like in the studio
Right.
because they needed those harmonies. Also, another thing I wanted to point out that I forgot, and it was a very crucial point that I forgot and it slipped my mind, so please forgive me. If you notice, in the '70s, '80s, '90s, and I would say it started to peter out in the early 2000s, the R&B group disappeared.
I did not notice that, but now that you pointed out, yeah, all of these, yeah, starting at least in the context of your playlist, and I can't really think of anyone that's not like, like One Direction. I don't really know their music to say if they have any R&B ish style songs or not. But yeah, it's all like single artists with featured
Hmm.
maybe another R&B artist or a hip hop, rapper coming in or something.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I didn't make that connection, but now that you pointed out, that's totally true.
yeah. So and because of that, to me, the harmonies aren't as rich as they were back then.
Yeah,
Because like like the Silks and the Shies or whatever, the harmony
you don't get
vocals.
that full group of people, yeah, all harmonizing, which definitely is just like it adds a whole other element sonically to a song when you have a whole group singing in harmony versus just one
Hmm.
person, especially combine that with what you were saying with the auto tune and all
Yeah.
that. Just
It
yeah,
just
I see what you're saying. It weakens it like as a listening experience. It's not as all encompassing. It's not as enriching of a sound.
exactly. So that's why, like, when I hear some songs today, I'm just like, it's good, but something is missing. And like to me, I miss that void of the harmonization. And there are some artists that will do their own harmonies. Like, I meant to put a Brandy song right here, but again, the list is already 100 songs. So I couldn't put her around here. But to me, Brandy is an R&B singer from the '90s who still, drops music recently. But she does a lot of her own background vocals herself, but it fills up the whole song because she harmonizes with the music as well as with her own vocals, and it gives a full experience with her music. There are some artists that can do that, but a lot of them don't, because the more they don't got the ability to, because their vocal range isn't as powerful,
Yeah.
um, in my opinion. So that's where you kind of blur the lines because people like Future. Is he a rapper? Or is he a singer? I
Eighty
mean,
20.
that's what I'm saying.
Like yeah, he definitely 80% rapper, 20% singer.
Yeah.
But
So
yeah, yeah, I get what you're saying for sure. I will say,
yeah,
out of all these songs, I didn't really connect with the vast majority for the 2020s playlist.
yeah, yeah.
I'm familiar with some of these people like Normani and Gene Aiko, and like I've heard them and other stuff, and like I recognize their talent, but the
Hmm.
actual songs, I was just like, meh. The one song surprised, I don't know, it may not be surprising, but the one song I really did for some reason connect with, I think it was a little weird for me, but the beat of Messy Love by Nao now, I don't know how you
Neo,
pronounce Nao.
Neo. Yeah,
That one just had me like bopping along my head, just like, oh yeah, okay, I'm digging this one. More so than the rest on the list for the 2020s.
100%. So Neo, a friend of mine got tickets to see her, and we went to go see her live in Atlanta.
Is she good?
And
I've never even heard of her until
I,
this.
I didn't know anything about her until then either. And I went to go see her live, and the way she sounds on that record is exactly how she sounds in person.
Okay.
Like her
Well, I'm
voice
glad my
is,
favorite was a good pick then.
it was a solid pick. Like the last three songs I put on there for a specific reason because I wanted to.
I did really like Joy and Pain by Lady Ray as well. That was the other one. I'm not a huge Bruno Mars fan, so I don't know. I recognize I'm pretty mega biased when it comes to
Mhm,
Bruno Mars. He's super talented. I've seen him live. He's also super talented live, can sing his absolute heart out. But
mhm.
anytime I hear Bruno Mars, I'm just like, oh, Bruno Mars, shut up.
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
You're too
Like,
beautiful. You dance too well. You sing too good. Shut up. I
right?
don't care
How
about you.
dare you? How dare you?
But
Hate everything. I hate love everything about you. So Lady Ray, that's the same singer from the '90s on the '90s playlist.
mhm.
Make It Hot, Nicole. That's her.
Oh,
So she changed her whole sound up and decided to go back to old school, traditional, classic R&B. So that's all. Make It Hot from the '90s, Nicole. Lady Ray, that's the same person. Beautiful album. Love that album. It's
she's
phenomenal.
got a phenomenal voice in my
Yeah,
opinion.
100%. And that's where again, to me, that's where that's what real R&B music is to me. when I can feel what you're singing and have not related to anything that happened in the song that you're singing about, but I just feel you, like sonically, like lyrically, I feel it in my heart. Like even though I have not gone through that relationship issue or whatever, but I can feel your pain, I can feel your joy, I can feel your sadness, whatever you're singing about, and if I can feel it, same thing with Neo. That's what real music is supposed to be about, and to me, that's what R&B music is supposed to be, versus what some of these artists are now. Again, we respect everybody's opinion, no matter how wrong or terrible I may be, but it's just not the same. So overall, how would you say your experience and your feeling going
Well,
into R&B prior to doing this podcast episode versus now?
so prior to doing this episode, like I said up top, I had this kind of nebulous, not really coherent idea of what I thought R&B was, and subconsciously I'd put a lot of songs in that, like, kind of on that shelf, so to speak, in my head. And here and there would enjoy them, especially like I said, like growing up whenever I was younger, and like the songs that were popular at the time I would vibe to and everything. But I wouldn't have really considered myself an R&B fan
Mm-hmm.
before this. Um, but like you were just talking about, man, listening through all these songs that you picked for the playlist, like, and again, just me being such a lyrically focused guy and just having, most often for these songs you picked, at least, just beautiful singing that has that emotional weight that comes in. They're singing about, stuff that, like you said, like everyone can relate to. You're getting that gut punch, or your heart wrung out, or whatever it is from the
Mm-hmm.
music. Um, it's expanded my understanding of what R&B is, which has led me to declare today that I am an R&B fan, and that R&B, like we said much earlier on, it's such a wide genre that obviously I'm not just, oh, the song's R&B, automatically love it. But when it's a really good R&B song and it does everything that the genre is known for really well, you got the great music side of things, you got the great singer, you got the fusion of these different genres coming in and making something unique, and just like, I don't know, man, it just like enriches your soul. I feel like some of these R&B songs, dude, like, just makes
Mm-hmm.
you, I don't know, it leaves impacts on you, like it lasts for like several days sometimes, right? And
Yeah.
I'm here for it, man. That's like the power and beauty of music in general, is like being able to move you and make you feel things maybe that you don't want to feel in that moment, but too bad, you're gonna feel it anyways, and they just hit you over the head with it. And R&B definitely like captures that, and I am very thankful that you decided to do this crash course of R&B music for me, so that I can get to this point of like understanding more what the genre is, and accepting of myself that I am, maybe not accepting, it's not, probably not the right word, but just understanding myself that, like, I do actually, a lot of these songs that I maybe would have not classified as R&B, or I didn't know to classify as R&B, are R&B songs, and I'm huge fans of them.
That's awesome. That's awesome, man. I'm happy for you. Welcome to the club.
Yeah. Thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
No worries, no worries. And if you are also a new R&B music fan or an existing fan, you can always reach out to us on our social media. We're on Instagram, Twitter, YouTube at After Listen Pod, and our website is afterlistenpod.com. You can always go there for links to the playlist as well as previous episodes. Um, don't forget to do all the things like follow, share, subscribe, all that good stuff.
Please.
Please, leave us a review, whatever. We want to hear from you. But yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time.
Yes. Thank you for listening. Bye.
Bye.